love AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't.
But
she's
AOC,
very far left.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that.
Favorite interviews was when AOC was talking to that lady and she asked her to expand.
About Israel-Palestine?
Oh
yeah.
my God.
Well, I believe absolutely in Israel's right to exist.
She just collapsed into herself?
It's literally like a fifth grader that didn't study.
Look at that incident more through just as an incident.
And then they ask you about the subject, or you didn't read the book. Well, you know, it's about Billy and his dog.
What people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is...
But the crazy thing about that interview is that, so her first comment comes off with like total authority.
I am a proponent of a two-state solution.
One little follow-up question. Question's like, well, what do you mean by that? And then you just see her get weaker and weaker.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
But what do you mean about that? It's like, I don't know what I'm talking about, man. Yeah. And she literally goes, I'm really not the expert.
Do you think you can expand on that?
I am not the expert at geopolitics on this issue.
She just gave up.
It all started on a quiet night during a panel show that quickly turned explosive. The topic? Who really represents the American people? Someone brought up names like Jasmine Crockett, Eric Swalwell, and of course AOC. That's when it all flipped. A calm but brutal voice cut through the noise and said, "They're not asking for AOC." The room got tense. Another guest fired back, "Yes, they are." But that fire didn't last long. "The people I party with don't like AOC." The voice shot back like a cold slap in the face. This wasn't just a disagreement. It was a public reality check, and AOC's image started crumbling right there on live TV.
Here she is.
And I think if you actually do see some of the photos of the signs, I think there's something to be said about the government's about to shut down. There's a vote clock that's going down. The exits that are normally open in that building were suddenly closed.
Suddenly.
So
you
pull the fire alarm? So what I'm here to say is that
What I'm
House
here to say
Administration and U.S. Capitol Police and Jamal Bowman are an active, and he's fully participating and saying there was a misunderstanding. But what I do think is
hold on. He's active and fully participating in saying that there was a misunderstanding.
He was actively.
That is not our language.
No, he was.
What language is that? She is delightfully stupid. I know people don't like her. I understand that.
Right.
But I just find her just wonderful. She's so dumb.
The real sting? It came from how confidently it was, said like a fact that everyone knew but was too polite to mention. That moment didn't just expose a political divide. It shook the fantasy that AOC is the beloved voice of the people. It showed that even inside the party, her popularity isn't nearly as strong as it looks online. That room didn't feel like a place for debate. It felt like an intervention. By the way, before we continue, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us grow and share more intriguing stories. Now let's continue.
He has called for the investigating and possible impeaching of members of the Supreme Court. Here's what she said.
I believe that we should be considering subpoenas. We should be considering investigations. There also must be impeachment on the table, and the Supreme Court has not been receiving the adequate oversight necessary in order to preserve their own legitimacy.
Where in the Constitution do you find oversight? One branch is the watchdog of the other branch? I don't think so. That's not the way it works.
A lot of people don't like AOC, but I really do love the earnestness of her stupidity. Like, there's something really charming about how hard she's trying. It's like watching your 14-year-old give a speech about something they don't really fully understand. It's like, it's kind of cute. It's adorable in a very, society-destroying sort of way.
Then came the flashback everyone remembered but wished they hadn't. A clip from an old interview resurfaced AOC being asked about the Israel-Palestine conflict. At first, she sounded strong. "I support a two-state solution." But then, The interviewer followed up. Just one simple question. What do you mean by that? And everything unraveled.
Of AOC. People love Jasmine Crockett. People love Eric Swalwell and the like. And I think that the Democratic Party should put the people out there who the people want. They should put the politicians out there who the people want, who they're asking for, who are meeting the moment with the same energy that
they're not asking for AOC.
Yes, they are.
The people you party with are.
No. The people I party with don't like AOC.
Oh, please.
No, they don't at all.
Well, most people don't.
But
she's
AOC,
very far left.
Let me tell you why I'm saying that.
She froze. Her confident tone turned shaky. Words stumbled out like a kid trying to explain a book they didn't read. Well, you know, I'm not the expert on geopolitics. It was awkward, painful even. You could actually see the panic in her eyes. It was like watching someone take a test they didn't study for, trying to bluff their way through every question.
We'll vote for AOC and Donald Trump on the same ticket because they're authentic. No, because they're authentic.
I don't think
Okay.
That Don.
I think you're wrong about that.
What people like about people like Trump and Fetterman is because it's irrelevant to her life.
But you don't know her life.
I know that being a gorgeous woman who I wouldn't even know was Hispanic in a city that has 1 million Hispanics and does not treat them badly.
But that doesn't mean she doesn't struggle. That doesn't mean that she was set down.
It implies it.
But that doesn't mean that she was set down in a Hispanic ghetto in the Bronx and had to deal with that growing up, and that she's come from a working class family.
It implies it implies that in some way she's behind the 8 ball because of that, and it's just not true.
And the internet didn't forget. That moment became a perfect example of how surface level her political depth really is. One second she's all buzzwords and strong stances, the next she's backpedaling with, "I'm really not the expert." That kind of collapse doesn't happen to someone who understands what they're talking about. It happens to someone performing. The worst part? It wasn't just one clip. That moment opened the door to more questions.
So
I don't know if she's behind the 8 ball, but I don't think she's as privileged as many people who are in Congress right now.
Is that privileged or not? She was a bartender.
Yeah.
You know, so I was
I
a
don't agree
delivery
with her policies, but I'm saying sometimes, Bill, you don't agree with Donald Trump's policies.
No.
But that's what the people want.
Some of them.
Whether you like her or not, I don't like what she did with Amazon in New York, but I think AOC she's a Democratic icon.
Well, she's the wrong. If you think that's the direction the country, the Democratic.
I'm not saying the policies that she espouses that's the direction, but I'm saying that you have to give the people who are out front speaking for the party, not the people who are.
If you think
she's evolving,
yeah, she's evolving,
and
as we all are,
and she is moving into She understands the game a little bit more, and if you notice, she is sort of becoming a sort of normal kind of Democrat in many ways. Yes. I think she's evolving.
Okay, great.
She's a very smart tactically. She's very smart.
Let's get behind that.
How many of her stances are rehearsed sound bites? How often does she crumble under real pressure? This wasn't a one-off. It was the first crack in the wall, and people started paying attention. After that, everything started snowballing. People began digging through her past interviews, and what they found wasn't pretty. Whether it was climate change, immigration, or the economy, her answers started to follow the same pattern-vague, confusing, and packed with buzzwords.
So much, Madam Chair, Madam Ranking Member. Here we are today, Republicans who have voted consistently against the Violence Against Women Act, who have taken away the right of all women to choose and have control over their own body, who, as women, are bleeding out in parking lots across the country, standing there, allowing us to die, now want to pretend today that they care about women. And why? To open up gender and, yes, genital examinations into little girls in this country in the so-called name of attacking trans girls. And to that, today, what we have to say are 2 words: not today.
The image of AOC as a bold, sharp, progressive voice started to fall apart. It became painfully clear. When she's on a scripted stage or tweeting to her followers, she shines. But the moment she's asked an unscripted question, things spiral fast. She dodges, stumbles, and loses control of the conversation. And critics, both left and right, saw an opportunity. Even voices who once ignored her started piling on. They didn't just criticize her policies, they called her a fraud. Someone who built a brand on being for the people, but couldn't answer simple questions on the issues she claims to champion. And it didn't stop there. Her public image, the one she carefully built with fiery speeches and viral tweets, was suddenly under fire from all sides. The message was clear. Being loud doesn't mean being right, and having passion doesn't mean you have depth.
And this is the number one priority
this majority
fearless
has.
conviction
Now looked like a performance, a very practiced one. And when that curtain started to slip, it revealed someone who might not be ready for the spotlight she craves. Then the criticism got even sharper. It wasn't just about her answers anymore, it was about how fake the whole act felt. Even Joe Rogan jumped in, calling her another media creation. No different from Kamala Harris. All slogans, no substance. And that stung. Because when someone like Rogan, who speaks to millions, starts comparing you to one of the most criticized figures in politics, you know things are going downhill. He didn't hold back. Said, AOC was more interested in appearances than real answers. And the more people listened, the more they started to agree. The timing was brutal. Clips of her dodging questions, talking in circles, and using trendy political phrases without making a point were everywhere. She talked about systems of oppression and marginalized communities, but when asked for actual plans or definitions, silence. Or worse word salad that made no sense. And that's when people really started to say it out loud. AOC might not be the smart, revolutionary leader the media promised. Instead, she was starting to look like someone playing a role, someone who memorized the lines but didn't understand the script. And once that kind of doubt creeps in, it spreads fast. Every interview, every speech, every tweet. Suddenly, it was all under a microscope. And under that pressure, her polished image started to crack even more. Then came a moment that perfectly captured the unraveling. AOC was asked about Congressman Jamal Bowman pulling a fire alarm in the Capitol building. Her explanation? It was a misunderstanding, and Bowman was fully participating in saying that. Wait, what? That sentence made zero sense. It wasn't just awkward, it was nonsensical. She rambled on about exit doors, vote clocks, and shutdowns, stringing together words like she was trying to sound serious without actually saying anything. It was like watching someone trying to bluff their way through a foreign language. The words were there, but the meaning was gone. And people noticed. Social media lit up, roasting her strange phrasing and complete lack of clarity. The clip went viral for all the wrong reasons. It wasn't political, it was embarrassing. People weren't debating policy, they were laughing at how little sense she made. Her critics said it out loud, she's delightfully stupid. Not because she's stupid, but because she tries so hard to sound smart and ends up sounding like she's just throwing words into a blender. That moment told a bigger story. When pressure hits, AOC doesn't fight back with facts or leadership. She spirals into confusion. Long, rambling, buzzword-filled confusion. And her supporters? Even they had a hard time defending it. You could see it in their faces, they were cringing too. That fire alarm moment wasn't a flukate, was a pattern. Anytime AOC gets pushed off her script, she falls apart. And it's not just in one area. Whether it's economics, healthcare, foreign policy, her default move is to flood the conversation with trendy terms like intersectionality or systemic injustice. It sounds deep until you realize she's not actually answering the question. People started calling it what it was: performance. A carefully crafted image, powered by viral tweets and Instagram videos, but with no real policy backbone. And now, even that performance was starting to break down. The fire and passion she used to be praised for, it now looked like panic. And when you peel back the layers, you don't find strategy, you find slogans. And the truth is, that trick only works for so long. At first, Those emotional speeches and dramatic monologues hit hard. But now, more and more people are asking, what's actually behind all that energy? The answer? Not much. The buzzwords don't land like they used to. The theatrics don't inspire. Her once fiery reputation is turning cold, fast. Because when people finally start listening closely, not just watching her talk, but actually hearing what she says, they find confusion, not clarity. Volume, not vision. And it's starting to wear thin. Then she went after the Supreme Court. Standing in front of cameras, AOC said Congress should start looking into subpoenas, investigations, even impeachment of Supreme Court justices. Her reason? She claimed they haven't been receiving enough oversight to preserve their legitimacy. It was a big statement, but one that immediately raised eyebrows. Because here's the problem. The Constitution doesn't give one branch of government the power to oversee the others, like a school principal. That's not how any of this works. Her bold demand exposed a deep misunderstanding of how the US government is actually set up. And when people pointed that out, she didn't clarify or walk it back. She just pushed forward like it made perfect sense. The moment quickly turned into another viral mess. Critics didn't hold back. Some called it dangerous. Others called it laughable. But what cut through the loudest was the disbelief. How does a sitting congresswoman not understand basic constitutional law? It wasn't just embarrassing, it was worrying. Because this wasn't a pop quiz or a casual mistake. This was someone calling for extreme actions without a solid grasp of the rules. And that's when people stopped just rolling their eyes. They started asking serious questions about whether she actually knows what she's doing up there. And that question kept echoing, louder each time she spoke. And just when it seemed like things couldn't get worse, people started pointing to the double life she seemed to be living. On one hand, AOC calls herself the voice of the working class. She claims to fight for everyday Americans, railing against billionaires and elite institutions. But then pictures pop up. There she is at a glamorous red carpet gala, wearing a custom designer gown, surrounded by the very elites she claims to stand against. It wasn't a one-time thing. Her presence at high-profile, celebrity-filled events became part of her brand. The same person warning about wealth inequality was sipping champagne at events that cost tens of thousands of dollars just to attend, and the internet didn't miss it. The contrast was so glaring it became a meme. People said it outright. You can't wear $1,000 gowns to luxury galas and then preach about the poor. That's not activism, it's marketing. It felt like a costume, a performance for cameras. And when talk began about AOC possibly being a future replacement for Kamala Harris on a presidential ticket, that's when alarms really went off. People saw through the illusion. Loud speeches, viral tweets, dramatic poses. They weren't signs of leadership. They were signs of someone who knows how to look the part, not how to play it. AOC wasn't rising, she was unraveling. And people were finally paying attention. While all this was unfolding, one person kept trying to defend her Don Lemon, but instead of helping, he made everything worse. First, he confidently claimed that the people wanted AOC, that she was the future of the Democratic Party. But the second someone pushed back, saying even his own circle didn't support her, he panicked. Well, the people I party with don't like AOC, he backpedaled. Just like that, total flip. It was pure confusion. One minute, she's the people's champ. The next, even her defenders are distancing themselves. Watching Don Lemon squirm was like watching someone try to bail water from a sinking boat using a paper cup. It was desperate and messy. And that desperation said a lot. It wasn't just about AOC anymore, it was about how shaky her entire support system had become. Her strongest media allies couldn't hold the line. Not because they didn't want to, but because the facts were impossible to ignore. Defending AOC was starting to look like a losing game, and Don Lemon's performance proved it. One moment he's boosting her like a future leader, and the next, he's tripping over his own words to explain why no one actually likes her. It was embarrassing to watch and even more damaging to her already crumbling image. Then things took a wild turn. In the middle of this media mess, someone tried to make the most bizarre comparison yet. Don Lemon, again, tried to equate AOC's authenticity with Donald Trump's. Yes, that, Donald Trump. He argued that people would vote for AOC and Trump on the same ticket because they're both authentic. It was one of those moments where you have to pause and ask, is this real life? Let's be honest, whatever you think about Trump, his authenticity isn't fake. He's unfiltered, unapologetic, and brutally consistent. AOC? Her brand of authenticity looks more like a TikTok campaign, carefully crafted, always polished, always calculated. The difference couldn't be more obvious. But Lemon wasn't done. He tried to paint AOC as someone who's struggled her whole life, growing up in the Bronx, overcoming hardship. And that's when more facts started leaking out. Turns out, her upbringing wasn't nearly as rough as she makes it sound. Her family was relatively well off. She had access to good education and a stable life. Not exactly the from the trenches story she sells on stage. That blew a hole in her whole image, because if her backstory was exaggerated, what else was? People don't like being manipulated. And when it feels like a politician is pretending to be one of you while living like one of them, that trust dies fast. And in politics, trust is everything. Once it's gone, you don't get it back. At this point, her supporters were running out of excuses. Some tried to argue that AOC was just evolving, becoming more like a mainstream Democrat. Others said she was learning the game, as if that explained the confusion, contradictions, and embarrassing public moments. One guest even said, she's becoming normal, like that was a compliment. But here's the thing, normal doesn't win over a skeptical public when your whole brand is being different, bold, and revolutionary. If you start off as the fearless outsider but slowly become another polished, rehearsed insider, what are you really offering? Another moment during the panel turned downright bizarre. People started talking about how we should give the people what they want, no matter who it is. The idea being, if the crowd asks for someone, we give them that leader no matter how dangerous or unqualified they might be. That logic is terrifying. It's the same reasoning that led to the rise of authoritarian figures in history. The conversation got so messy, someone even joked that by this logic, we should bring back Hitler if enough people asked. That's how ridiculous and reckless the whole defense became. It stopped being about AOC's vision and turned into blind crowd-pleasing. And that's what her critics kept hammering. This wasn't leadership, it was pandering. A desperate need to stay popular instead of staying principled. And more people were starting to see it. And then came one of her most outrageous moments yet. AOC took the floor and delivered a fiery speech accusing Republicans of pretending to care about women while secretly attacking them. She didn't hold back. She claimed they were voting against the Violence Against Women Act, allowing women to bleed out in parking lots. And here's the wild part. She said they wanted to inspect the genitals of little girls to stop trans athletes from competing in female sports. That last line hit like a punch to the face. People weren't shocked because she was bold, they were stunned because it made absolutely no sense. No one was calling for genital inspections. The debate was about biological males competing in women's sports. A serious, sensitive issue. But instead of engaging with the actual argument, AOC went for shock value. She twisted it into something absurd and inflammatory just to rile up her base. Theatrics? Yes. Logic? Nowhere in sight. It was a textbook example of how she handles pushback by turning up the drama and saying the most extreme thing possible. And while it might earn a standing ovation on Twitter, it left a lot of people shaking their heads. Because when you take a real debate and turn it into fear-mongering nonsense, you're not helping anyone, you're just making noise. And at this point, AOC wasn't leading a conversation, she was screaming over it. The moment you muted her audio and just watched her speak furrowed brows, dramatic hand gestures, pacing with urgency, you might actually think she was delivering something profound. But once you turn the sound back on, the illusion shatters fast. Because the words don't match the performance. Instead of facts or reasoned arguments, it's buzzwords stacked on buzzwords. Her go-to move is to throw out emotionally charged lines that sound powerful but don't actually mean anything. Bigots love this bill. CEOs are the real villains. Women are dying in parking lots. It's all heat, no light. She's trying to hit emotional triggers instead of engaging in actual debate. And here's what became clear. AOC thrives on theatrics. The louder, the more dramatic, the better. But when you strip away the shouting and slogans, there's no real foundation underneath. She turns every disagreement into an accusation, every political debate into a war on morality. Protecting women's sports? She frames it as hate. Questioning her policies? That's oppression. Disagreeing with her? You must be a bigot, a sellout, or worse. But more people are seeing through it now. Her dramatic speeches don't inspire the way they used to. They're starting to feel hollow, rehearsed. Like a character trying to stay relevant in a role she no longer understands. And when all you've got is performancino depth, no answers eventually, the audience walks out. And finally, we arrive at the heart of the whole story. AOC's public image, the fighter, the disruptor, the voice of the unheardees falling apart. Not because of one bad interview or one awkward speech, but because the pattern is impossible to ignore. Whether it's twisting policy debates, rewriting her background, or turning every disagreement into a moral crisis, it's all starting to feel fake, forced, hollow. And it's not just her critics saying it, even her allies like Don Lemoneri struggling to keep the illusion alive. They fumble through defenses, change their stories mid-sentence, and trip over contradictions. They're working overtime to sell an image that no longer matches reality. Because behind all the big speeches, designer gowns, and social media fame, AOC's arguments are shallow. Her performances are loud but empty, and the cracks are showing. Whether she's dodging questions about the Supreme Court, rewriting facts on women's sports, or collapsing under the pressure of real-world issues, people are no longer giving her a free pass. What started as a promising political star now looks more like a brand in crisis. Bill Maher didn't create the paniche, just pulled the curtain back. And once people saw what was really there, they couldn't unsee it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one.